If you take a stroll north through Amber Heights, you'll find a bar where many of the locals go to relax, unwind, and throw back a few. It's always 5 o'clock somewhere, am I right? Inside this bar, we can speak with one of the most interesting people that I've run into so far in the game. An older gentleman named Ash.
Never seen you before.
You say that like it's a problem.
Not for me. Maybe for you. Come out here looking for some better life, kid?
Better life? On this shithole moon?
Ain't that the fucking truth? Nothing on this moon for nobody. There's a lot of heartbreak.
Heartbreak? What happened to you here?
A great many things. I'll tell you what. You want to listen to an old man ramble? There might be a job in it for you. I used to run with a squad of mercenaries here. Good folk. A fella named Lamont introduced me. Thing is, I ain't seen them in an age. Stands to reason they got themselves ate.
Mercenaries? What'd they do?
Mostly we protected folk from the beasts here. If it spat, scratched, or stung, we'd kill it for you, so long as you had the bits. We split ways around the time this twice-fucked moon got abandoned. Thing is, I got myself some fond memories. We had some keepsakes of ours we kept in a lockbox, and I've been thinking about seeing it found.
You want mementos? What, like photographs, or...?
Thereabouts.
What if they're still alive?
I'll be glad for it, but I ain't stupid. This planet tends to get people killed. I just want some closure.
Can't you just find them yourself?
Getting on in years, kid. Eggs ain't working like they used to. Sulfur burns a little too long in the lungs. This joint's looking like my last home.
Alright, one lockbox coming right up.
Appreciate it, kid. I'll mark an outpost on your map. You spend a lot of time out there. Might be a good place to start. Here's a key for the door.
At this point, we're free to leave the conversation and set out to find this missing lockbox. However, if you're like me and you enjoy learning as much as you can about the Outer Worlds universe, then begin a second conversation with Ash, because he has a lot more to say.
I'm drinking here. Move yourself on. Nothing on this moon for nobody. There's a lot of heartbreak.
So, tell me, what's your story?
It's pretty simple, kid. I sit at the bar, I drink, I mind my own business. That's it.
Alright, pal, I can either buy you a bottle, or I can bust one over your head. And don't call me kid.
Denting my skull would be a waste of perfectly good alcohol. I got 2 exes who'd vouch. Look, you want to buy the drinks, I'll do my bit to keep you entertained. Just don't ask me to dance.
And we can go ahead and pay 20 bits to buy him a drink.
I can't repay no kindnesses now. Alright, so, I reckon one of the most interesting places I've been is the Hot Pole. You know what that is?
The Hot Pole. The Hot Pole. Yeah, I've got no clue.
This moon ain't big enough to rotate. It's locked. One side always facing Olympus, the other always facing away. Olympus might not be a star, but it throws off assloads of heat. Monarch's hot pole is the part that's closest to the gas giant. It's in the middle of this big mountain plateau. Volcanoes so high the peaks are in space.
If we look at a map of the Halcyon System, we get a better idea of what Ash is talking about here. Monarch, formerly known as Terra 1, is a moon that orbits the much larger, much hotter planet of Olympus. Since Monarch is too small of a moon to rotate, one side is always facing away from Olympus, and the other side is always facing towards Olympus, which is the quote-unquote hot pole that Ash is talking about here. So, wait, that would mean there's no air. If there's no air, how did you survive?
O2 breathers. The heat from Olympus is worse, though. Close your eyes, you can see rays bursting through your eyeballs. Little streaks of light. The funny thing is, then in the middle there's just smooth rock. Circular-like. All the dust blown away. Pale gray with hair-fine cracks all over. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I was lightheaded from the O2. But I felt like I had to take off the breather for a moment, put my ear to the ground.
So, let me get this straight. It's hot enough to boil water, and you put your ear against a rock.
I did get a burn on the lobe before I smartened up. Put a towel under me. It was at the edge of hearing. Deep down, far off, irregular. Tap, 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 tap. The sound of a bird pecking out of a shell.
The sound of a bird pecking out of an egg? Small cracks along a smooth gray surface? Was Ash standing on a giant egg with some giant monster slowly starting to break out? No, it couldn't be. Could it? Sorry folks, I'll go ahead and take off my tinfoil hat now. Ash, what do you think it meant?
Hell if I know. When there's a ground quake now, I hold my breath. Because I don't know if it's Olympus squeezing us with gravity, or wings getting stretched.
Yes. Fascinating. Hey, will you tell me more if I buy you another drink?
I won't decline it. So, you know about the ocean? It's where the monarchists keep their salt tuna.
After that last story, should I expect this one to end with you, I don't know, running into a giant fish?
You couldn't pay me enough to go out on a boat. That much water scares the fuck out of me. At least space kills you honest. You can see forever. Goes all the way around the moon, at the twilight band. On one side, the volcanoes of the hot pole, on the other, the storm wall of the cold pole. Nobody knows how deep it is. Never needed to. The salt tuna keep near the surface. What's more interesting to me is the tides.
Wait a minute. If Monarch's locked so one side always faces Olympus, how are there tides?
Nobody's asked me that before. The way I hear it, it kind of wobbles back and forth. The ocean sloshes side to side as it does. On account of how big Olympus is, the tides are monsters. When it's low, the ocean pulls back miles. When it's high, entire islands go under. It ain't so bad in the bay. Likely why they built a city here. But one morning I've gone a ways east. Tides are out, and off in the mud I see something catching sun.
Maybe it was just salt tuna left stranded by the tide.
That's what I first thought. But something like that be flopping about. This was steady and clean, like metal. Standing out there in the mud, miles from any place, is a circle of silver columns. 6 of them, about 2 stories tall, seamless metal. While I'm standing there in the middle of them, my ears start pounding and I see shapeless things out of the corner of my eyes, gray, disappearing when I look straight at them.
So now you're telling me that you ran into space ghosts. Great.
About then, while I'm cussing into the dark miles from shore, I realize there's another sound in the distance, a roaring off in the night. The tide's coming in.
Oh,
That's exactly what I said at the time. It gets up to my chest before I start outpacing it. But I didn't stop running until I was on something real damn tall. The weirdest thing? I went back the next low tide. Flew out with an AG loader. The columns were gone. And I've never seen them since.
Are you sure you went back to the same place?
Sure as I can be. The moral is, the tides here will kill you if you ain't careful. So stay the fuck away from the water.
Fair enough. What do you think, Ash? One more drink on me?
I'm near out of stories. You'll have to enjoy this one. I told you before about the hot pole. The point of T of Monarch, closest to the gas giant.
Folks, I'm not quite sure what Ash was going to say here. He says the point of T before quickly reverting to say the point of Monarch closest to the gas giant. I tried looking it up, but I couldn't find anything. If you have any thoughts about what Ash was going to say here, I'd love to hear them in the comment section below. But yes, Ash, you told us all about the hot pole, and later a cold pole and a storm wall.
The cold pole is the side that always faces away from Olympus. That's where most of the water is, big sheets of ice. The warmest it gets is 40 below. So you got one end bitter cold and the other boiling hot. That's why there's constant wind, and why we have the storm wall.
You keep mentioning this storm wall. What exactly is it?
Where the hot air from one end meets the frigid air from the other, you get storms. You go far enough towards the cold side, you'll see it. A wall of ice cliffs, giant sheets cracking off into the sea, and overhead storm clouds, thick and rolling, snow and ice on gale force winds.
And yet, you thought, this seems like a great place to visit.
In my younger years, I liked the idea of seeing something nobody else bothered to, standing where no one else ever would. I was a stubborn cuss. I trudged through the storm wall, Had to do it in one go. If you stop for half an hour, you get buried. It was night when I made it through. 90 below and falling. Perfect dark, stars by the million. Forgot to breathe.
And then aliens showed up. Am I right?
No, don't be weird, kid. It was cold enough that CO2 froze out of the air. CO2 is what makes our brains go, you need to breathe. So I was standing there, head going all swimmy because I wasn't feeling no urge to breathe.
Well, I assume you got out of there pretty fast.
Tired as I was, you bet your ass I did. Just popped some pills, turned around, and went right back through the storm wall. Lost 3 toes to frostbite. People can live all sorts of places, and survive all kinds of things. Too cold to want to breathe would be a mighty strange death.
Got any more stories? I'm buying.
Nah. Go out and live your life for a bit. Do something, I don't know, exciting.
And with that, we can leave Ash to his drinking. Truth be told, I thought these stories were fascinating. But then I got to thinking, is Ash telling the truth, or did he simply make it all up? We'll take a deeper look at that very question towards the end of the video. But for now, we have a lockbox to recover. Ash marked the location of an outpost that belonged to his old mercenary group and asked that we venture into the Monarch wilderness to investigate. Looking at our map, we see that our destination is located to the south, not far from Forlorn Crossroads. Of course, along the path, we do run into our fair share of hostiles. Eventually, we arrive at the outpost, marked by exquisite exterior design consisting of a couple sprats hanging from a drying rack and a fake window partially torn from the side of the building. Approaching the front door, we can use the Hunter Outpost keycard that we received from Ash and head inside. We find ourselves in a relatively small room with a few lockers in the back and a long table at the center. Taking a lap around, we can loot some ammunition and several different consumables, including Nanospank, which gives you +1 to mind attributes for 1 minute, a Tripicale pasta pack, hope I'm pronouncing that right, and a Knock You Out bar. There's a set of lockers in the back, but they're locked. It requires 5 mag picks to open, and to be honest, the loot inside really isn't worth it. We find a small amount of light and heavy ammo, as well as 1 weapon part and 1 armor part. Personally, I'd rather have kept the mag picks. There's a door here leading into a back room, but again, we get kinda skimped on the loot. Here we find a few consumables and 6 bits inside of a bin. Heading back out into the main room, we notice a terminal resting against the wall. Accessing it, we get an error message. Primary drive has been corrupted. Access is limited to the most recent 2 messages recorded. The first message is from Delilah to Lamont and reads, PJ says you bought tickets for all of us. You didn't have to do that. I owe you. I don't know that I'll ever be able to pay you back, but thank you. In the second message, we see that Lamont responds to Delilah and writes, don't mention it. I'm attaching coordinates for the waterfall camp. Grab your gear and meet us there by sunup. We're finally getting off this hellhole. So it sounds like Ash's fellow mercenaries were planning on leaving Monarch. Can't say I blame them really, what with the bloodthirsty raptidons and all. But what happened to them? Did they ever make it? Or did they fall short? Sitting on a table at the center of the room, we find an electronic log. It says someone left a ledger with a list of names, likely members of the unit that used this outpost. Some names, like Lamont and Delilah, are at the top of the list. Some names are crossed off, only to be added later, as if that person left and then rejoined. Of peculiar note is that the name Ash is nowhere to be found. That's strange. Was Ash lying to us when he said he was a mercenary? I suppose it's also possible that Ash is a nickname, and in actuality he is on this list under a different name, but it's still suspicious. I took a lap around the outside of the building to see if there was any loot I might have missed, but sadly there was not. The waterfall that Delilah mentions in her note can't be missed. It's just a stone's throw away to the south. However, when I arrived at the waterfall, I couldn't find the camp. Just a couple of bins to loot and the secret entrance to the C&P factory, which we'll cover in a future video. I'm not entirely sure if this was the way I was supposed to go, but in my playthrough, I found the camp by following the stream east, cresting a hill, and then crossing over a naturally formed bridge along the path. The camp itself is unmistakable, marked by some kind of large fallen structure, a few mattresses, and a campfire still burning. But no mercenaries. Delilah, Lamont, the others, they're nowhere to be found. I suppose we shouldn't freak out just yet, though, right? I mean, for all we know, the mercenaries were able to get off Monarch just like they planned. Positive thoughts. Think positive thoughts. Positive thoughts. Well, that's awkward. Scattered across a large ditch in the ground are bodies, humans and creatures alike. We see the bloodied corpses of MSI soldiers, sublight thugs, a sprat, a canid feral, an iconoclast, marauders, a terror ray. What on earth happened here? Lying amongst the carnage, we find ordnance control armor, a vortex mace, and skeletal remains. The remnants of these bones show the telltale signs of a mantisaur attack. Powerful jaws have crushed the skulls, while weathering on some of the fragments suggests passage through some beast's digestive tract. Amidst the dirt, you find a small lockbox that matches the description given by Ash. Well, we successfully found the memento that Ash wanted us to retrieve. I just wish that we didn't have to go digging through a crime scene to find it. Those poor mercenaries were torn apart while waiting for a transport ship. They were so close to getting off this hellhole once and for all. So close, and yet so far. With the lockbox in hand, we can head back to Amber Heights and again speak with Ash. Listen, Ash, I found Lamont's body.
You know, a tiny part, a damn stupid part of me hoped he was still out there. What happened?
They bought themselves a ticket off-world, but they were attacked while waiting for it.
Damn. Well, you find our box of memories?
Yeah. Thing is, I found a list of agents in the Outpost. And for some reason, Ash, you aren't on it.
Well, ain't you clever? Fine. I was supposed to pick him up that night. Thing is, another offer came along. Bit more lucrative.
You abandoned them? For God's sakes, they died out there!
And their payment almost died with them. Thanks to you, I can afford another round. Cheers, hero. Look, I like your gumption. I was gonna share the bits, but here's a couple extra. Now go on, even old Mantis passed.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anything we learned on this quest, it's that Ash is a terrible, terrible person. He was the one responsible for escorting the mercenaries off-world that night, but he never showed up because he received a more lucrative offer. As a result, the mercenaries died there in the wilderness, torn apart by beasts, with no one around to help them. But hey, at least Ash here got a big fat paycheck. So we know that Ash is greedy and kind of an a-hole. That's pretty much an undisputable fact at this point. But what about the stories he told about his grand adventures across Monarch? Was there any truth to them? Or were they just bold-faced lies? While we'll never know for sure, I feel pretty confident that Ash is completely full of crap. Let me start with this premise. From what we've seen, Ash is completely driven by money. When we first met him, he told us that he protects people from the ferocious creatures of Monarch. Not because it's the right thing to do, but because he knows people will pay good money for his services. If someone was in danger but didn't have 2 bits to rub together, then Ash would probably look the other way. Money is also what motivated Ash to leave the Mercenaries in the wilderness, because he found a better, higher-paying job to do. When he didn't hear back from these mercenaries, he correctly assumed that they had been killed. But instead of feeling remorse or having regrets, all Ash could think about was that damn lockbox, aka money. No matter what happens, bits are always on his mind. It shouldn't come as a surprise, then, that Ash was willing to entertain us for a while after we offered to buy him a drink. We were, in effect, saving him money. A total of 60 bits, to be exact, and all he had to do was talk. Now, for what it's worth, Ash is an incredible storyteller. I found myself completely engrossed in his stories about the strange noises from the hot pole, magnificent storms at the storm wall, and alien technology revealed by a falling tide. I genuinely wanted Ash to keep talking, even though something tells me that the stories weren't true. You'll recall that at one point, Ash mentions that the ocean tides on Monarch rise and fall over vast distances, covering entire islands before drawing back out for miles. But when we ask Ash how these tides are possible on a planet that doesn't rotate and instead stays fixed in place as it orbits Olympuss, Ash seemed to be a bit caught off guard.
Nobody's asked me that before. The way I hear it, it kind of wobbles back and forth. The ocean sloshes side to side as it does.
Now, I'm no astronomer, but I do know that a giant planet like Olympuss would have an incredibly powerful gravitational pull. That gravitational pull would keep it so that the tide on the side of Monarch facing towards Olympuss would always be extremely high, while the tide on the side of Monarch facing away from Olympuss would always be extremely low, or perhaps non-existent. In other words, the tide would be fixed, because the part of Monarch being affected by Olympus's gravitational pull is also fixed. Even if Monarch wobbles as it orbits Olympuss, as Ash mentioned in his story, I still find it hard to believe that this wobble would be substantial enough to compete with Olympus's gravitational pull and cause the tides to go in and out for miles. Again, I'm far from an expert on this topic, and if I have something wrong, please correct me. But as of right now, it's just not adding up. And also, sea ghosts that build metallic monoliths? Really? I mean, I don't know. It's just a little absurd, even for a universe as absurd as the Outer Worlds. Could I be wrong about Ash? Yes, absolutely. Maybe he really has had a bunch of adventures, in which case, I hope that he has many more in the years that he has left. But remember, he did already lie to us once about being part of the mercenary team. And you know what they say, once a liar, always a liar. But what do you think? Was Ash telling the truth about his adventures? Or do you agree with me that he was just lying? What do you think of Ash as a person in general? Let me know in the comments below. I post new lore videos every single week here on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification icon so that you don't miss any future episodes. Also be sure to like this video and comment if you haven't already, as it really helps my channel get exposure on this platform. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks again so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll see you next time.